Hello.
Hello.
Hello, everyone.
No, that's not how I say it. You're bad at mimicking me. Hello, and welcome to another episode of Reading Reddit with Amber. I'm Amber. Who are you this week?
You said I was Brian. Wow, now I'm really confused. Wow, you're like, oh, Brian, stop messing around and, be Brian. And now suddenly you're asking me who I am? I don't even know who I am anymore now. Thanks, Amber. Thanks a lot.
You're Brian. Our first story today is, am I the jerk for putting wound care and feminine hygiene products in the same category? I'm a guy, but I have sisters and house guests, and my mom told me it's always nice to keep an emergency kit of pads and tampons in a labeled container in the bathroom cabinet. So I do, and never really thought about it till a few days ago when I wanted to reorganize my bathroom with labeled containers. I was showing off my organization skills to a girlfriend of mine, and she noticed that one of the boxes is labeled wound care / feminine hygiene. In that box, I put all my bandage dressings, antiseptics, and some pads and tampons. In my mind, it made sense because it's all to stop bleeding. She asked me why they were in the same box when other things were more organized. I said something like, well, it's all to stop stuff from bleeding, and she got mad. In my mind, it makes perfect sense. It's all pads and gauze for absorbing blood. She says I'm trivializing or making a joke about periods. Am I the jerk? I'm going to say there's not really any jerks here.
Yeah.
So kind of my initial reaction when I read this as, when I have my period, I like to have everyone think I'm dying. So labeling it wound care is right up my alley, make things as dramatic as possible.
Yeah.
So I personally, I think this is kind of funny. But I also understand that, and I didn't think of this myself. I was looking at the comments on this, and some people pointed out that there are some kind of not very nice words or references to vaginas that treat them like they're wounds or something like that. So I can also see things from her perspective. So I think it's just he was doing something. First of all, this is a very nice thing to do.
An effort was made.
Yeah.
It's better to have things it's good that she pointed out that she was unhappy about this labeling system, I think. But maybe she could have said, oh, hey, actually, would you mind separating them out or something like that? I kind of think that this is not necessarily an appropriate way of segregating them,
Yeah, so first of all, huge props to him for even having these on hand. I think it's really nice to have things for your guests that you don't need yourself. So I think that's really cool. And it was maybe a little bit of an unfortunate labeling choice, but it should hopefully be a relatively straightforward thing to resolve, so.
Well, and the feminine hygiene products don't stop bleeding. They absorb bleeding.
Yeah, it's true. Menstrual hygiene products do not, of course, stop you from bleeding. They're not clotting a wound thing.
Yeah.
Although, you can use menstrual hygiene products to stop bleeding.
Oh, yeah.
Actually, if you read the comments on this one, the comments thread is a lot of people talking about all the different types of bleeding you can stop with pads and tampons. So, which apparently, some people are talking about being first responders or police or something like that, and when there's an accident, if there's the ambulance isn't there yet, if a lot of times people will pull out pads or something to stop the bleeding, and it works very well. So.
They are absorbent.
Yeah.
All right. Our next letter is titled, Am I a Jerk for Watching Carrie in Front of My 5-Year-Old Niece? I live with my parents, my older sister, and her 5-year-old daughter named Skylar. Today, my dad had plans to go golf. My mom had plans to shop. My sister had plans to eat with her friends, while our grandmother babysat Skylar. So I had plans to watch movies all day long at the house, one of which was this old horror film called Carrie. But then our grandmother canceled, and my sister asked me to babysit Skylar. So I told her she had to pay me if she wanted that, but our parents made me do it for free. When the time came for me to watch Carrie, I told Skylar to take a nap, but she refused. I warned her that she wouldn't want to watch the next movie we were going to watch, so she would at least go away. But she wouldn't budge, so I didn't argue and just watched the whole movie in front of her. And now she complained to my sister that she is traumatized by Carrie and can't stop thinking about it. My parents and my sister are beyond mad at me, but I'm not going to apologize. It's just a movie, and it wasn't even that scary at that. Am I the jerk?
So I think the real jerks in the situation are OP's parents, forcing them to babysit without compensation. Because, I mean, I think even if, you are related to the people you're babysitting, you should still be able to be compensated for your time. OP was reluctant and didn't want to do it once they were told that they weren't going to get paid. It sounds like they are kind of forced into it. And so this is kind of, to me, a situation of you get what you pay for.
Yeah, well, you have to wonder if they said, oh, if you pay me, I'll do it, knowing that the sister wasn't going to want to pay them. And it was more or less kind of one of these things where, oh, if you give me enough money, I'll do it. But, like, they weren't really expecting people to actually come. They were kind of hoping that their sister would cancel as opposed to, have to actually watch the kid.
Yeah. And we don't know OP's age from this, but they sound young, like probably a high school student, maybe early college. So, like, I don't know.
Well, the moral of this story is don't force someone to babysit that doesn't want to babysit.
Exactly.
And...
I understand the sister wanted to have her lunch plans with her friends, but, like, also it's her responsibility to find a willing babysitter.
Well, how long was she gone for lunch that you could watch the whole Carrie?
And
because
other
Carrie is a
movies
bit of a long movie, isn't it?
Yeah, it's like, it's like 90 minutes.
Yeah.
So, like, one movie wouldn't necessarily be that out of the question, but it sounds like she was just doing it sounds like OP was doing a movie marathon, and, like, they got through multiple movies, so, like, again, I understand if you want to date out with your friends, but as a parent, it's your responsibility to find a responsible babysitter.
Yeah. As for watching Carrie in front of the kid, how old is the niece? Does
5.
It say 5? I mean, like, they'd say, oh, well, it's not even that scary. Well, the thing is, like, you don't get to judge whether or not a kid feels fear or not. And, like, if this kid was truly... scared of this and can't stop thinking about it, because there are some pretty graphic scenes in Carrie, then, there's a reason why there are ratings on movies. Not every movie is going to be appropriate for every age, and you should be aware that something that's not scary to you as an adult might be really horrifying and traumatizing to a little child.
Right, and this is the subject of kids in horror movies is inherently fraught. I watched a lot of horror movies when I was young, like 5, 6 years old. My favorite movie is Stephen King's The Shining, the made-for-TV miniseries version, which premiered on, like, ABC 7 at, like, from, like, 9 to 11 at night. So my mom videotaped it for me because I couldn't stay up that late. It was past my bedtime, and let me watch it when I was 6 years old. And I was fine. I actually babysat for these 4 brothers, and their parents, the youngest was 3, the oldest was 8. And one time, like, when the parents were home, my sister and I were over hanging out with the boys, and we all watched Jeepers Creepers. Like, the parents put the movie on, and the 3-year-old used to walk around pretending he had a knife saying, "I'm Michael Myers," which, even as someone who likes spooky stuff, kind of freaked me out a little bit. I was like, maybe 3's a little young, but there's a lot of open questions, and, like, it really depends on the child and
sure
how okay they are with that type of material, because my sister got freaked out by horror stuff. Like, we watched Arachnophobia, and I was probably like 5, so she would have been like 2, 3 years old then. And that movie did not go over well for her. And so...
Well, isn't she afraid of spiders to this day?
She is afraid of spiders to this day.
Terrified of spiders?
She does not like them. And it may have something to do with watching Arachnophobia when we were very little. So... It's not the best course of action to watch horror movies around children who you don't know what their sensitivities are.
Exactly. And the thing is that, again, like, I mean, I think that OP not wanting to watch the movie in front of... wanting to watch their movie is one issue, and I think the allowing the kid to watch it, is another issue. And, like, as the babysitter, you have the authority to take the kid and put them into their bedroom for their nap, and it just sounds like that they, instead of like doing that, they wanted to just be like, well, fine, it's your choice. You get to watch this with me.
Well, it sounds like they just didn't really want to be babysitting.
No,
and so...
I certainly feel for that. I made the point, earlier that don't force someone to babysit.
Right, I was just saying, like, it's more effort to take a kid and drag them down to their room and listen to them scream that they don't want to be in their room, than to let them sit out there and watch the movie with you.
Yeah, it could very well just have been an effort thing. If their sister throws, or niece throws a temper tantrum, that might just be something hard to deal with.
Yeah. So... ultimately, like, I think that the parents and OP's sister are the ones who are really had the responsibility here to choose a more responsible babysitter or fairly compensate OP so that they would be responsible.
Yeah.
It wasn't necessarily the best idea to watch a movie like Carrie in front of a 5-year-old. But again, OP was kind of put in an unfortunate situation where they're being told, you have to watch this child when you have no interest in doing so.
Yeah. Well, what happens if they had plans themselves to go out?
Yeah.
So, I think that's, like, oftentimes people treat staying at home and, relaxing as, like, an inferior activity to going out and doing other things.
That's a very good point, because OP had planned in advance to have this movie marathon, and the parents basically were like, well, too bad, so sad, you're babysitting, and that's not a good way of handling it. OP's plans were just as valid as their sister's, even if they weren't going out and seeing friends.
Yeah. Because, like, for me, if I make plans, I want to do something, I don't necessarily want them to be interrupted. It doesn't matter, whether it's going out or staying in, that's just it. It's like, they're both valid forms of plans. They're both valid forms of things that you want to do with your time. And oftentimes, like, people will treat, oh, well, you're just staying at home when you're doing this or that at home as kind of like, oh, that's perfectly acceptable to interrupt that activity. You don't have to. You can do both. Watch your sister, your niece, and do your movie marathon type of thing,
Yeah, well, I'm really glad you brought up that point, because that is a really, really important point, that, like, just because OP wasn't going out didn't mean their plans were invalid. And as someone who is fairly introverted and likes to do a lot of stuff at home, like, yeah, I feel like just because I'm not going out doesn't mean that I'm not doing anything or that my plans aren't valid. And so,
yeah.
Our last story today is, am I the jerk for not wanting to talk about my wedding plans with my friend anymore because she keeps stealing them? I recently...
Well, this is why you lock the blueprints away into a safe. If your friend keeps stealing your wedding plans, put them in a safe. That's my advice there.
I recently got engaged to my boyfriend of almost 3 years. We are hoping to get married in fall of next year, so we have started some wedding planning. I have a friend, F, who also got engaged a couple of months ago. We have been friends since high school, and we're semi-close as far as that goes.
F's in the chat.
Anyway, for the longest time, she wasn't doing any wedding planning. However, now that I am engaged too and have started my wedding planning, she seems to have started as well. Not sure why she wasn't until now. At first, we talked about simple things. She's super indecisive, and I have a pretty good idea of what I want. She plans to get married next summer, so she will marry before me if it goes through with her plans. I didn't mind talking to her at first. We have very different styles, and so we didn't really match up with anything as far as planning goes. However, now that we're more into it, she seems to copy every idea I have. For example, I am touring venues this weekend. She had no interest in the types of venues I am touring until I started actually wanting to go to them. When I told her my top choice of venues, now she is planning to book that for herself. Same goes for photographers, caterers, decor, dresses, etc. Literally every wedding planning she has either copied me, plans to copy me, or semi-alters my idea to make it seem like she isn't. Now, I'm not trying to gatekeep my wedding by any means. I don't mind to have some of the same things going on, but at this rate, her entire wedding will be just like what I'm planning, and she is getting married before me, so it will come off as if I'm copying her, which isn't the case. She basically lets me do all the research for things, then asks me the questions about them, waits until I make a decision, then makes the same decision as me. It's like she knows she's getting married first anyways, so she technically won't be copying anyone if she does it first. So I've stopped talking to her about my wedding planning. At first I brushed her off like, oh, I haven't looked into that yet, or I'm waiting to plan that, just so I didn't have to give any details on things. However, she has figured out something is up and is calling me a jerk for shutting her out of my wedding planning. In reality, I think she's just mad I'm not giving her any more details. Am I the jerk here? I don't want to come off as a bridezilla, and if it were just a couple things like using the same photographer or caterer, or just stuff that doesn't matter behind the scenes, I wouldn't care at all. But so far she's using the same florist, same flowers also, venue, color scheme, decor, etc.
This is an interesting one, eh?
Yeah, I mean, I think OP is well within their right to stop talking to the friend about the wedding planning, and I think that's the prudent thing to do.
I think the friend is probably gripped by indecision.
Yeah.
I think the friend is having a lot of trouble making decisions and planning out their wedding, and this is why they didn't get started. And now that OP got started on their wedding, they saw this as an inspiration, and then basically were like, oh, well, if it's good enough for OP, then it's good enough for me. And so I think that's probably what they've started doing here, is that they just don't have any idea what they want out of a wedding, and it sounds like OP has a really good idea what they want out of a wedding. So, I don't know, I think OP might be able to compromise with, this person and say, hey, look, I understand you're having a hard time planning. I can help you plan your wedding separately, but, it makes me really uncomfortable that you seem to be picking everything I'm picking. So I think really the main thing that where OP's probably gone wrong here is that they didn't just sit down with their friend and discuss this.
I mean, potentially, but I feel like a friend who just, copies all your ideas and pretends like they aren't copying is, not being a very good friend in that moment.
No,
it's
sure.
fine if you're indecisive, but it would be one thing to say to OP, oh, I love this idea you have. Can I use it for my wedding?
Mm-hmm.
I think the friend should have approached the situation a lot differently from how she did.
Oh, yeah.
And because of that, OP, it would be nice to help her friend plan the wedding, but OP doesn't owe their friend, wedding planning either. There are wedding planners for a reason. It's a big job.
Okay, well, I mean, the thing is, I'm not saying that she should offer, I mean, I guess I did say that a little bit, but all I mean, the part that I really think, point that I really wanted to make more than anything is that OP should have sat down and explained their feelings to their friend more than anything. If they want to help their friend plan a wedding, they can help their friend plan a wedding. But also, the big thing, I think, is not sitting down and talking to their friend.
Yeah, certainly this wasn't the most effective style of communication. As someone who's conflict avoidant, I probably would have gone more OP's route, but I'm also not saying that's the best route. I think having an honest conversation with the friend would probably be the best approach. I have a feeling, though, based on this, that the friend would probably get very defensive.
They probably would. And I mean, but, sometimes uncomfortable conversations are necessary here.
Yeah.
And if this is a friendship they want to preserve, this is, something that they might have to do.
Yeah.
So, also, the question I have here is, does it matter if the weddings are identical? Do they have close enough of a friend circle that is going to overlap and whatnot? And my guess is yes.
Yeah, and I would say with things as specific as, the color scheme and decor wanting to be the same, it's really going to look like OP is copying this friend, and to an unhealthy degree. And so, since OP is the one getting married second, if OP was getting married first, then it would be less of an issue, but where they're the one getting married second, I definitely think preserving the ideas that are theirs, that are dearest to their heart, is going to be an important thing. So, like, even if you find some way to, like, reconcile and talk to the friend about things, I would not recommend sharing anything that you really want to be yours.
So, my big suggestion here, I think that what OP should do at this point in time, and I think that this will work. OP, what you have to do is you have to show up to her wedding day in your wedding dress. And with your husband, or your future husband, and then that way you can be like, "Oh, I thought we were having a double wedding here."
Yeah, that sounds like a terrible idea.
I mean, this will work, and tell everyone that the date has been changed.
I want to share a couple of comments. You remind me. There's some good comments in this. I'm not endorsing these necessarily.
She's endorsing it,
but.
She's like, yeah, this is a good idea. Do this. Exactly.
Okay, so I'll read the top one, and then there's another one down that's related to it. Not the jerk, make up some weird stuff about your wedding instead. Use sunflowers instead of roses. Have clowns performing. Color scheme orange and purple. Have a herd of sheep at the reception. Play with her mind a bit.
Oh, that's really good.
Yeah, and there's an actual wedding one down here a little bit, so I'm going to find that one again. My friend isn't engaged, but is the sort of person who likes to map out her plans and wants ahead of time. She loves Pinterest and would often pin things she would like for her dream wedding. Her friend got engaged, and she noticed that her friend was stealing every single idea from her Pinterest board, down to the flower choice, color schemes, and even search for the specific bridesmaid dresses that were pinned in the photos. Realizing what was happening, she subtly made a new board and managed to swap it with her old one, which she made secret. She began pinning ludicrous things like Halloween-themed items, the wedding was in October, or just posting color schemes or dresses that she personally hated. Lo and behold, her friend copied most of those ideas, not the more ridiculous pins though, thankfully. The wedding was still quite nice, but my friend didn't have to worry about her dream wedding being stolen anymore. So that would be one potential avenue. Not necessarily go to those extremes, but if there are things that you don't want in your wedding, they aren't like horrible, but they're just not your vibe.
Yeah.
Maybe like be like, oh, I was thinking about this, and then like you can subtly plan your friend's wedding, with suggestions that are maybe a little more helpful than some of these comments would be, but just things that are totally not your vibe.
Or just attend her wedding in your wedding dress.
No, I don't recommend that. That's going a little far. All right. Those are all the stories I have for you for today. I hope you enjoyed today's video. If you did, consider giving it a like or letting me know in the comments. Thanks for watching. And have a great day.